In this series, Lowimpact.org talks with people working to build a mutually owned, democratic, decentralised economy that builds community and doesn't destroy nature. We want to increase collaboration to bring about system change. Find links to the sites mentioned in the videos in the description below. Join the conversation by liking, commenting and subscribing to our channel.
At Lowimpact, we're networking with great people around the world who are helping to build a new kind of economy, a decentralised and mutually owned economy. We're interviewing those people to promote what they're doing and to talk about ways to build the new economy. And today I'm talking with Emma Back, and she's one of the founders of the Equal Care Co-op in Halifax in Yorkshire. Hello, Emma.
Hello, Dave.
Now, I know you because we were on the Finance Innovation Lab fellowship together.
Yes,
and
seems like decades ago now.
And finance is not social care, so but one of the interesting things about the Equal Care Co-op is if you have an internal payment system that looks a bit like mutual credit. In fact, would you say that it is mutual credit?
Jump in with an easy question. I would say that it is a crossover between mutual credit, time banking, tokenising, and I say that very cautiously, and recognition of informal labour and emotional labour and care work. The caveat to that is that we haven't built that bit of platform yet, so
right, okay.
we are still in a very experimental phase.
Okay, so we'll come back to that and we'll talk about your plans in that respect. So you're also a co-op in which care users are equal members with care providers, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So we've got 4 categories of member. We've got worker members, and that's anyone who contributes their labour to the cooperative. So that includes volunteers, that includes people who are on different types of employment contract or basis of employment. We have advocate members, so that is family members or friends of people being supported. And then we have supported members, which is fairly self-explanatory. The 4th category is investor members, and they have a proportionate share of the vote, so a 10% share of the vote, whereas every other membership category is 1 member, 1 vote.
So investors they can't have more than in total. Investors can't have more than 10% of the decision-making powers.
That's right. Yeah.
Right, okay. And what did you say? The support. The care users, what was the terminology you used? Supported. So
it's just
members,
people getting support. Yeah.
Is that unique, having the supported members as full members of the co-op?
No, there are definitely other care co-ops that have multi-stakeholder structures. There's Cartrefi Cymru in Wales, who have redone their memorandum and articles to be a multi-stakeholder, and then there is Valley Care Co-op in Kirklees, and they also have a multi-stakeholder structure. Those are more recent ones actually, so the older care cooperatives that have been around for a bit longer tend to be worker member co-ops.
Mm-hmm. And you also use sociocratic decision making, don't you?
Yes.
So you're
we do.
Full of interesting things.
It's all quite a lot. Yeah.
So equalcare.coop.
Yes.
COOP. That's your website, isn't it? I'll put.
Yes, that's right.
I'll put all the relevant links in the description below. So before we talk about what you're doing exactly, what's the problem you're trying to solve? What's your motivation?
Well, if you know anything about the care sector and social care in particular, and home care in particular, and the way in which care workers are treated in it, the horrific wage rates, the very poor working conditions, the entire way that the sector is structured is exploitative. And that has huge knock-on effects, obviously, on the people that it's designed to support. So if you're getting home care, particularly if it's through the local authority, you're likely to be getting maybe 4 half-hour visits a day. You don't know who's going to show up on those visits. You don't know what time they're going to arrive. and you're very likely to be seeing a different person every single day, if not for every single visit. Some people can see up to around 40 care workers a week, because the way that the system is structured is that people do rounds. It's shift work in which care workers are paid the moment that they get through the door to somebody's house, and then they stop getting paid the moment they walk out of that person's house. Which, if you think about that from the perspective of the NHS, a community nurse who does very similar things, she'll go around, visit people's houses, she'll, and she is usually a she, will check that people are all right, and she can still expect to be paid a salary when she's driving from place to place. So just that fact about the sector is enough to make me furious, and a lot of people in the country very, very angry.
And I guess if you have happier care workers, they, I guess,
you get completely different outcomes. You get completely different experiences in caregiving. You get completely different symptoms, particularly for older people living with conditions that cause or exacerbate confusion. It's And
do you link the care workers with the supported people so they always see the same person?
Yeah, so our model, which we developed over the course of the pandemic, and that we call teams, is this is sort of the base level. This is the heart of it, really. Everything else is sort of bells and whistles and fluff, nice fluff, but fluff. And teams are built and owned by the person getting support. So the idea is that they choose who joins their team.
Right.
We use a platform to enable that. They identify people who are already in their team. So that might be family members, neighbours, it might be private care workers, it might be other agency workers, doesn't matter. And then everybody in their team is in a shared chat, there's shared notes, there's a shared support plan, which is their getting support profile. And what that means is that because as a care and support worker, you have consented to join that person's team, and they have consented to you joining their team, that completely changes the ground of the relationship, that completely changes the way that the support unfolds after that. And what we've seen so far is that doing things this way, yes, it's logistically difficult. Yes, there are problems. Yes, there are challenges, but doing things this way has resulted in really strong bonds, really resilient teams, and people being able to stay at home for longer, people's dementia systems weakening, softening, people mental health conditions improving, kind of all sorts of family members able to go back to work when they couldn't before with a traditional agency kind of working in the way I've just described. And it's kind of magical watching it.
Well, it seems like exactly the obvious way to organise social care. It just makes you wonder why.
I know, it's so obvious.
Why is social care not organised like that already?
Yeah, I mean, it's not innovation. It's just
Common sense, isn't
trying to make something that is so deeply obvious work in a system that is fundamentally opposed to operating in that way, even though everyone who makes up that system wants to work in that way. A lot of the inspiration for doing this came from the original disability rights activists in the 80s that campaigned for personal budgets. And so that's where, as somebody who's getting support, I have a pot of money that I can then spend as I see fit on my own support. So I can employ my care workers, I can decide to, go to the cinema, I can I can go on trips, I can live my life, and be in charge of my own care and support. Now, for the vast majority of the country, that option is not open to them, either because the condition that they have makes that impossible, or because the number of hours that they're able to pay for isn't enough to be able to directly employ someone on that basis. or because, I mean, employing someone is a real headache anyway. So just that idea of the governance around the care and support, the decision making around the care and support stays within that team. That is the biggest, that's where the 80% is. Like, that's where the 80% of the differences are. And yeah, as I say,
Is your
the
local,
rest is
what's
tweaking
your,
and refining.
sorry, go on. So what's your local
Yes.
authority there?
Calderdale Council.
Are they supportive?
They're very supportive. Yes. Yes, they're very supportive.
No further comment. Is that what you say?
So, as with many other councils around the country, Calderdale commission in a very traditional way. So it is those 4 half-hour visits. So a lot of the drivers for the way that care and support happens is councils, not providers. And it's the way that councils commission and the way that councils think care should be bought. And they think that care should be bought in a way that's like a package off a production line. So, you know, Mrs. Bloggs in HX7 needs 4 half-hour visits a day, double ups.
Social care in a box.
That's all the information that we get.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Right.
And then it sort of becomes a problem of capacity rather than a problem of providers not being able to work together, and there not being enough transparency in the system to be able to support people properly.
So have they taken to your model? Are they happy with your model? Or do you get?
Yeah, they think it's great, but they can't see a way to get from A to B at the moment. Right. So they sort of commission. So there's the home care framework service, and then there's a sitting service which they commission. And the sitting service is larger blocks of hours, which makes more sense from a kind of equal care teams perspective. And it's more flexible, which is the key thing. So the more inflexible contracting arrangements are, the harder it is to be able to get a team up and running. We have done it. It is possible, but it's harder. And because we're still halfway through the platform development, being able to develop to be able to incorporate those kinds of contracts, so people would show up on the platform as a mystery team basically, and then seeing how many people would be able to fill those gaps, and then once we've got confirmation of those gaps all being fillable, then we can say to the council, yes, we can support Mrs. Bloggs and HX7. There are councils around the country that are looking at commissioning in very different ways, so it's not all like this. We're working closely with Islington at the moment, who are looking at retendering the ways in which they do their home care contracting. Tower Hamlets as well, quite a few councils in London are exploring this, and the Co-operative Councils Network, which Calderdale sadly isn't a member of, are also very exercised around alternative ways of commissioning. So, yeah.
The Co-operative Councils Network, do you know how many councils are in it? I mean, what sort of percentage of councils are in that?
I don't know. I'm going to hazard a guess, but it would probably be wrong.
That must be a potential springboard for spreading this kind of idea to other parts of the country.
Yes. I've done a couple of talks at various council get-togethers over the past year, but our challenge at the moment is that we're still effectively in pilot stage as a result of the pandemic. And we are still not sustainable here in Calderdale, so we have to get to the point where we are able to wash our own face, so to speak, and then to be able to pull together the capital to launch in other areas, because obviously there are upfront costs to doing that, and enabling circles to launch in other areas.
Circles, you call them? That's a sociocratic? Yes. That's a sociocratic word, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So
a circle is a semi-autonomous governance unit, which makes it sound a little bit like a robot, but it's not a robot.
And that's how you make your decisions?
Yeah, so
all of them?
circles, all of them.
Is that how you make all of your decisions?
Yeah.
Yeah. So sociocracy is a thing, isn't it? It's a thing in itself. It's a whole movement. And where did you learn about it, and where did you learn how to do it?
I learned it off the fantastic Ted and Jerry from Sociocracy for All, which is a non-profit based in the US, dedicated to training and helping organizations become sociocratic. Yeah, they are both wonderful people, very knowledgeable about it. There are some aspects of sociocracy that we haven't taken up, particularly the stuff around performance reviews and hiring and firing is a really, well, hiring is obviously easier than firing, right? But the really difficult decisions are always around people. And I mean, we haven't even gone there, to be honest, because I've heard some real horror stories. I don't want one of those. Like, so just to put it one way, imagine being fired by your manager at a normal organization, and then in a sociocratic organization, imagine being fired by your entire team.
Oh my God.
Now, which one would you choose?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, no, we're not going to go there. That's just mean.
That does sound a bit
mean. Yeah. So no.
But for day-to-day decision making, how are you finding the sociocratic method?
Well, it varies, right? So the ways in which, like, circles kind of have formed and then separated and then reformed, and then so it's quite fluid. We started off with way too many circles, and then we kind of just like collapsed it all into one, and then we're like, oh God, everyone's just doing kind of completely different jobs, so let's sort of split it out again. Yeah, because we're still so tiny, everybody is basically a department unto themselves. So in terms of the decision making, it's whenever anyone needs advice and support, and also anything that kind of crosses over between those domains, we call them. So I mean, key decisions around like fundraising, kind of community share offers and stuff like that, that's something that I'm leading on, but the decisions for that are made in a fundraising group, and then also our purpose circle as well. Decisions around bringing on people who are looking to give support made on an interview panel basis. So we haven't, it's not like every single decision kind of comes to a circle to ratify and then has to, if the interview panel says, yes, this person is going to be a worker with us, then that's their decision. So yeah, it's not consensus. So things actually can move, and yeah, consent decisions, in my experience, whenever we've tried to sidestep them, either because of time or pressures or just a million different reasons, the decisions that have been made by consent have always been the higher quality ones. They've always been the longer lasting ones.
So just to clarify that means that just to clarify that means that somebody or one or two people might think, I'm not wildly in favor of this decision, but I'm just gonna
live with it.
It's not the end of the world. Yeah, fine.
Yeah. It's good enough.
Yeah.
Basically, good enough to move forward with. It's a very pragmatic way of working.
Yeah, we haven't got enough time to go into the details of sociocracy, but I'm thinking that it should be a low impact topic, really. We should get it onto the website.
Yeah, it's good.
Interview somebody at what were they called? Sociocracy for us.
Sociocracy for all.
For all,
yeah.
sorry. Yeah,
yeah.
I'll contact somebody there. So,
yes.
So you know that I'm involved with lots of mutual credit people, and we're trying to build mutual credit systems around the country and around the world. So yeah, I'm very interested in your internal mutual credit-esque plan. So if you could, using sort of baby language for my mom, no offense, mom, but nothing. Could you give us a, an overview of what it actually involves?
So there's a lot of care in the care system that doesn't get paid for. And that's care that's given by family, that's care that's given by volunteers, that's mutual aid groups that popped up around for COVID and existed before that as well. And nobody pays for that. And it's also important that nobody pays for that as well, because there's a gift involved. What we're looking to do is to put a number on that in order to make more of it.
And is that based on hours or?
So it's be based on hours. So we're going to start very, very simple, based on hours only, basic time banking kind of principles. So as a community volunteer with Equal Care, you join a team, you give some hours into that team, and those hours get recorded through the platform. So I give 3 hours of support a week, and I get 3 care coins or care credits or whatever we're going to call them. Those care coins can then you can then do something with them. So either you can save them for yourself, put them aside for a rainy day. You can give them to somebody specific, or you can give them into a general pool, which can then be redistributed.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
When you say coins, do you mean numbers in an account like
points? Let's call them points.
Points. So they're just
call them hours. Let's call them hours. 3 hours.
Okay. So
you've done 3 hours. Yeah. You've got a record of those. Yeah, 3 hours in your account in the platform.
Can you go into negative? Can you go into negative somehow, or is it just? And
then, well, this is a conversation I had with Matty Slater about a year ago.
Oh, did you?
Like, there has to be a zero. There has to be a zero. The initial iteration, you can't go into debt, but you can be gifted care coins, because obviously not everybody can give support and build them up in your account. So initially we're just looking at getting it going as a mechanism to both recognize the gifts that you give as a volunteer, the gifts of time that you give, and also to double them, which is kind of one of the things that the clever things that currencies can do. So once you have those 3 hours in your account, you say, right, I've got those 3 hours, I'm going to gift them into the pool. Those 3 hours can then go into somebody else's account that's at 0. And that's somebody who's receiving support. And they can then spend those 3 hours on some more support from another volunteer somewhere else.
Right, so the volunteers don't really use their points themselves. They sort of hand them over to people receiving the care.
In the main, yes.
Right.
So the experience of time banks is that without a mechanism for redistribution, then you've got no way for the people who are doing the majority of the giving and the people who are doing the majority of the receiving to get access to the credits that the people who are doing the giving are building up and not spending.
Right. So the people receiving the care, they would use their points, if you like, for extras, not essential care, but
yeah. So it's not, in this country at least, it's not permitted to give regulated support as a volunteer. No. And by regulated support, I mean help with medicines and personal care, like going to the bath, bathing and going to the loo and getting dressed
Right.
and things like that.
So would it be kind of fixing things for people, or taking dogs for a walk? Or...
Yes, and like accompanying to, you know, to gigs and trips out, and
right.
Now that we're allowed to do that again, emotional support, listening, pretty fundamental, errand running, dog walking, all sorts of things that are not provided for by the state. So if you have under £23,500 worth of savings, then you are eligible for care and support from your council to be paid for. But that care and support will be the absolute minimum, the floor of what you need to stay clothed and clean. Nothing else really beyond that tends to get awarded. So yeah.
So what successes have you had? What
so
you had to
some of the is because we applied to be a regulated organization in 2020, our focus has been really on how can we get the paid care and support to work in the way that we want it to work, even though that's really going against the grain of regulated care, which is very command and control. It's very risk averse. It's very, I mean, it's all about passing the buck. And you go onto the CQC's website and you'll read a lot of lovely words, but a lot of the practice of home care that we've experienced, particularly in other agencies, and have felt it ourselves, is based on fear. It's based on fear of reprisals. It's based on fear of getting a requires improvement rating. It's based on fear of being reported. And so as a result, the culture starts to kind of ride on that and get pushed by that. So a lot of our work over the last 2 years has been concentrating on how do we almost create a protective bubble against the various bureaucracies and the various cultures that we're trying to keep out of the cooperative, because they're dangerous and they're harmful in many ways. So of the volunteering side of things, there has been some of that. And what's been quite beautiful about what there has been is that the volunteering has been directed, yes, at people who are getting support, but also family members and also care and support workers themselves, who are in the main young women, and many of whom are in working poverty, many of whom may have some forms of neurodiversity, and many of whom have experienced sexual abuse and trauma. It is, as a female care worker in this country, that is the profession that you are most at risk of suicide from. So, so the really significant impact of integrating a form of care currency that recognizes that informal work means that we can produce a system that supports everyone involved in that work. Everyone is working in this system, regardless of whether you're getting support or giving support, or a family member, or you're paid or you're not paid, everyone is working. And
listening to your talk, it's just it's just this should definitely be the future of social care, shouldn't it? It seems obvious. I mean, what are the barriers? How do we get this spread? What are you?
There are so many barriers, Dave. This is so hard. The biggest barrier is funding, as you'd probably expect. So we're developing a digital product, right? And digital products are expensive to build and they're expensive to build well and to get right and to change and to iterate and to learn and to grow. And you know, and all the venture capital funding that goes into starting businesses, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but it's a massive percentage goes into men and goes into white men, and it goes into tech. So as a result, developer salaries are massively, you know, they're like the wizards of our society at the moment, aren't they? So that's hard to compete. If you look at Equal Care's development and then compare that to many of the venture-backed platforms in the marketplace currently, we look slow, and we are slow, and that's because we haven't been able to attract that level of funding. I mean, even starting to go about it is a challenge. We were the first platform co-op in the UK to use community shares to raise our seed capital without any collateral behind that.
Wow.
Our pilot project started at the time of the pandemic, at the time of lockdown. So that was horrific timing. Just a year either side, you know, just a year. And in terms of impact investment and that whole world of social investment, the work that we're doing sort of falls through the gaps somewhat, which is quite sad. So at the moment, community shares are really the only route for us to be able to build more capital, to, you know, finish the bloody platform.
Can people get community shares?
Break even in wholesale. Yes, we're going to launch one really soon.
Right, okay.
In the next 3 weeks.
Right, okay,
we'll be
so
launching we'll be launching our 2022 community share offer, which should have been the 2021 community share offer, but hey, pandemic.
So if people would like to see this kind of social care spread around the country more, and for you to become a really successful model, then they should get involved with your community share offer and get themselves some shares.
Yes, they should, because if we succeed, that means that that other platform co-ops will have a greater chance of succeeding. Yeah. And a big part of what we're doing, which kind of tends to get a bit lost in and amongst the care and support model and that work, is around ownership of the internet. And yes, it's a small piece of the internet, but it is a piece of the internet that we're building, and it is owned by the people who use that piece of the internet. It is not owned or seeking profit extraction. It is not. Its incentives are totally different. And just being able to show a pathway that isn't horrifically difficult to being able to get the capital investment to get something like that off the ground would really open an avenue over the next 10 years for more institutional investors to get on board, for more money to come into this type of work, and for it to be real money, like in the millions, in the tens of millions, ideally, not just for us. But yeah, if you compare the for-profit VC funded platforms on the market today, their minimum funding, the lowest funding that I've seen is 2.5 million, and that's before the Series A.
But then you're locked into a system where there's going to be money sucked out of your organization for forever. So it's just soul destroying, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a bit. We're still fighting, but it's hard.
So we have plans to launch a website, how to build the institutions of the new economy in your community. And that's everything from cooperative grocery stores to community land trusts and community energy schemes and community supported agriculture, and obviously social care co-ops. I mean, that's a fundamental part of a strong community, isn't it? Social care. It's really right at the heart of it. So I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to talk to you some more when it comes to that, and to talk about how we help other people do the same thing in their communities. But that's further down the line, maybe later this year. But yeah, I'd love to talk to you more about that. And we'll put you in our directory.
Get some institutions on board.
Yeah. Well,
get those
those
social change funders to put their money where their mouth is.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll put you in our directory under co-ops and community, and I'll let you know. I'll let you know when we've put you in there. And yeah, fantastic talking with you, Emma. And I'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, you too, Dave. Thank you.